Hi there and welcome to the latest edition of SecondsOut ReFLEXions. I'm Daniel Flexen. I'm here every Monday 4:30 PM to talk about the boxing action that's most recently happened. And we had a big show on Saturday night, albeit with no crowd as has become the custom more recently. BT Studios in Stratford played host to the first of a couple of tune-up fights designed to lead to the big October pay-per-view showdown between Daniel Dubois and Joe Joyce. Dubois is in action in August, towards the end of August, and Joe Joyce kicked off the pair of tune-ups, if that is indeed how they both turn out. I mean, Saturday nights certainly did. He got rid of Michael Wallisch, game, but ultimately outgunned German in round 3. A lot of criticism of Joyce, it seems, immediately following the fight, in that, newsflash, he's hittable, apparently. Now, I was shocked. I can tell you I never imagined people would be saying that Joe Joyce was hittable after he fights, but apparently so. Apparently he takes quite a lot of shots. Well, there you go. Blow me down with a feather. Hilarity aside, Joe Joyce has always been hittable, from the amateurs to the pros. He is what he is. He's nearly 35 years old now. He's not going to change. He's strong. He's tough. He's athletic, and he hits very hard, and he's also very busy. And at heavyweight, that makes him something of an anomaly, easy for me to say, and something of a tricky opponent to subdue. Now, he's not the fastest, far from it, in fact, and he does get hit. His defence is a bit leaky. He's never going to be confused with Floyd Mayweather Jr. But the things that make him hard to beat are things that aren't going to fade over time. You know, the likelihood is, as long as he keeps himself in good nick, he's always going to have a good engine. That power that he's got is going to continue to be there, and the natural athleticism won't change. You know, he's competed in a lot of different sports and activities throughout his life. So he is definitely a consummate athlete, even if he isn't the very best technical boxer out there at the moment. Now, I lost count of the number of tweets I saw after the fight saying, oh, well, if Joe Joyce doesn't tighten up that defence and, you know, he got hit with too many overhand rights and Dubois got a great right hand, so if he doesn't sort it out, Dubois is going to get rid of him early. Listen, if you thought before Joyce against Wallisch that Dubois was going to get rid of him early, then still think it, not a problem. If that's reinforced your belief, I understand. However, if you thought it was going to be a competitive fight or that Dubois would win late or whatever beforehand, that opinion shouldn't be changed because Joyce went in against a relatively short notice tune-up fight opponent and got hit a few times. It shouldn't make any difference to how you felt before. Joe Joyce is Joe Joyce. He gets hit. Now, will he get hit as much by Dubois as he did by Wallisch? I would imagine he'd be more cautious in his approach and his defence he'd be a bit more on his guard. He'd be a bit more, that sharpness would be there that probably wasn't there against Wallisch, and he'd also be a bit lighter, I think it's fair to say, because he came in quite heavy on Saturday night. Not only that, but he didn't have his trainer with him for the Wallisch fight because Ismail Salas is based out in Las Vegas. And with the travel restrictions, in terms of either Joe going over there and then being able to get back or Salas coming over here to train him, it was a non-starter for July. However, they do expect to be reunited for the October fight with Dubois. And Salas is a trainer who really emphasises movement and rhythm. And they might not be words that you normally associate with Joe Joyce, but if you cast your mind back to him in the amateurs or early on in his pro career, the debut against Ian Lewison when he was under Salas, for example, his movement was actually pretty good. He's quite mobile, and he knows when to step in and when to back off. He's got a decent enough boxing brain, and I don't think you'll see a defence as leaky as it was against Wallisch when he's up against Dubois because he knows that's a real challenge. So there's a couple of things that will change before the Dubois fight, and I still think it's a highly competitive fight. Dubois may be better technically, the more explosive fighter, faster hands, youth, definitely. But Joyce, very, very strong man, more mature, fought the better opposition, both amateur and pro, far more experienced, natural athlete, the busier fighter. And we don't know how big a shot Dubois can take just yet, and Joyce hits very hard. We do know that Joyce can take a good shot, both in sparring, professional ring, amateur ring. He hasn't been truly walloped since Sergei Kuzmin did it about 7 years ago. And since then, we've seen Joyce grow into, well, a Juggernaut, as is his nickname. And that comes with both flaws and advantages. And I just don't like this kind of sudden belief that Joyce is going to get destroyed by Dubois because he took a few shots in a not meaningless, but certainly not overly meaningful fight. So I'm happy to end up with egg on my face when their fight takes place in October. And I'm not going out on a limb predicting Joyce is going to win either, but it certainly won't be over in the first couple of rounds. I'd be shocked if that happens. Moving on to the undercard, we saw a trio of Peacock Gym stablemates all make good impressions. Louis Lin took his first step up against recent Celtic title challenger, I believe, or maybe Scottish title challenger, I have to check, Monty Ogilvie. Got him out there early on, but did hit his opponent a couple of times when he was on the deck. A lot of people said afterwards he was lucky not to be disqualified. I'm not so sure. I think point deduction warning the first time he did it. He might not have then repeated the infraction, but we'll never know. I think, if anything, Louis is quite young. It was his first real kind of chance to make a big impression on the big stage, albeit no fans, but live on BT Sport. And I think he was guilty of being a bit overeager, not just with the shots when Ogilvie was on the floor, but generally in his performance, he tended to, at times, smother his own work, although overall he put in a really good performance. Denzel Bentley, we saw, he also took a step up against Mick Hall. Mick Hall, obviously a good fighter, only previously lost to Jack Armfield, but hadn't really had a proper competitive fight in about 3 years. And it showed. He wasn't the sharpest early on. And he took a bit of a beating. Had his moments, it's fair to say, but overall just got broken down and eventually was retired by the corner. Good win for Bentley, and he'll do well for going rounds against a competitive opponent instead of blasting him out early as he had been doing previously. But probably the most impressive of that Peacock trio on the night was Chris Bourke, and he had the toughest challenge as well. Going up against Ramez Mahmoud for the vacant Southern Area Super Bantamweight title. Mahmoud, former champion for the Southern Area at featherweight, so had the pedigree coming in. Steve Goodwin fighter, technically very competent, lot of heart, went the distance. 96-94 from referee Bob Williams in Bourke's favour. I thought it was a fair bit wider than that in reality. I thought although Mahmoud gave a good account of himself, landed often with an excellent jab, overall he was outworked and outclassed in the vast majority of the rounds by Bourke, former GB rep, who just made it look effortless at times. Fleet-footed, great shot selection, lovely body shots, and just unerringly accurate, very rarely missed, and didn't waste many punches either. You've got to like that about boxers. It's something I've always admired about fighters, those who are really economical with their output and only throw when they're kind of, they play the percentages, they throw when they're most sure they're going to land, so 80-90%. That they're sure that they're going to land. So really good performance by Chris Bourke, new Southern Area champion. But he's probably already kind of English to British title level. And fights for Frank Warren, of course. So it'd be interesting to see if a match can be made between him and British and Commonwealth champion Brad Foster Jr. However, he's now looking, having won the Lonsdale belt outright, to vacate perhaps those belts and move in the direction of a European or fringe world level. So there might be opportunities for Bourke there. Maybe even a Bourke Mahmoud rematch for the people who thought it was a close fight for an English or British title. That would be interesting. I think I was informed on Twitter that Michael Ramabaleza has the English title at the moment. Again, easy for me to say. So we'll see if a match maybe could be arranged. I think Shabazz Massoud is the number one contender or mandatory contender for that belt. So they might have to fight first and then Bourke will get a look in. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. But they were really impressive, as was Henry Turner. We've got a wide points decision over Chris Adaway. Again, Frank Warren clearly has a very good crop of young talent over there at Queensberry Promotions, and we wait to see how they're brought through on BT Sport over time. But getting back to the initial point, I thought Joe Joyce delivered a typical Joe Joyce performance against an outclassed opponent, a lower level opponent. You know, took a few shots that maybe he shouldn't have, but ultimately proved too relentless, too insistent, and too powerful. And that could still be the case against Daniel Dubois, even though Dubois is a much, much better operator than Michael Wallisch. We can't write, or I'm not going to write Joe Joyce off simply because he took a few shots, when he is a fighter that generally takes a few shots to land his own. But we shall see, and I want to know what you guys think. Let us know below what you thought of Joyce's performance and the other fighters on the bill. And also what you make of Joyce Dubois. Has your opinion changed based on seeing Joyce in tune-up action? And if so, in what way has it changed? I'll be back on Thursday for ReFLEXions at 4:30. and the next ReFLEXions the following Monday at 4:30 PM also. Really appreciate your time as always, and I will see you all soon. Cheers.